Well, I was originally born in Ashford, which is in Kent. I was adopted at the age of 2 and went to live with my adoptive parents in Ramsgate, where basically where I grew up for the next 18 years or so. Um, Upbringing was all right, I suppose. I don't remember much of my childhood, but I assume it was a happy childhood. Teenage years were difficult, very difficult. I was bullied throughout secondary school for various reasons. No one has ever actually told me why, but it could be anything from my hair to my clothes to the fact that I read a lot of books to the fact that I did well. Anything was picked on. I went to an all-girls school, which was probably in hindsight not the greatest idea ever. Girls can be very, very cruel. And then after my GCSEs, I moved to a mixed sixth form at a boys' grammar school, and it was slightly better. It wasn't terrific, but it wasn't as dreadful as the girls' school. Did my A-levels there. Applied for various universities. The nearest one was in London. And then I got accepted to the University of East Anglia, where I'm currently in my final semester before graduation in July. Met my partner at university. We still live in Norwich, but I'm hoping to get onto a Masters in Music Therapy course at Anglia Ruskin in Cambridge. So if I get that place, we'll probably move there. My mother was very, very young when I was born. She was 16 and my father wasn't around. He knew about me and he knew that my mother was pregnant, but he wasn't really there. And my mother went to live with a man who was, shall we say, very unsavoury. He was not a nice man at all. I don't know much about him, but from what I've read, he wasn't a nice man. And eventually my mother put me up for adoption and then took me back and then put me up for adoption again and took me, and we went round and round like that. And eventually a judge said that the situation at home had become bad enough that there was no leeway. I was being adopted and that was that. So I think it was just my mother's youth and the fact that she just wasn't ready to have a child, I guess. I mean, 16's realistically too young for a child. I think I was 11 when I was first told, but I don't remember it. The first time I can remember was when I was about 16 or so. At the time, I was really angry, really, really angry. I felt like my adoptive parents had lied to me throughout my life, and I'd had a pretty bad teenage life anyway. So that, on top of everything else, was kind of the catalyst that just triggered I basically hated myself. I thought, well, who's going to want me? My own parents didn't want me. And, I had to be given to somebody else to bring up. And I did hate myself. I hated my parents, both sets of them. I was just really angry. I mean, it really, really hurt to be told your parents aren't your parents. But I think now, having met I say I've met them. I've met my biological mother and spoken to my biological father. I think it was for the best because, I mean, even now they're one of them's nearing 40, the other one's mid-30s. I'm sure they're very lovely people, but they didn't want to know. They didn't want to know me. They didn't want, And I think it was probably for the best in the end. I mean, it still hurts to know that I have biological parents out there, one of whom has children. So I also have half siblings as well. But at the end of the day, it's not my decision to make. It's their decision. And I've always said, if they want to talk to me again, if they want to try again, then the door is always open. But I'm not going to put myself through heartbreak for people who don't want to know. It started initially when I went to secondary school, so when I was about 12 or 13, and I was a very naive child, but I knew I was being bullied because the primary school I went to, everyone was generally nice. I mean, you got the odd joke and the odd complaint, but no one bullied me. And I knew I was being bullied because I knew it wasn't right, but I didn't know why. And it was really tough to deal with that, to go into school on a daily basis and have everybody calling you names or, throwing your books around. One girl, I've played the flute since I was about 11 or so, and one girl actually stole my flute and put it in her locker, which culminated in me running around the entire school trying to find it. And to hear that on a daily basis is just really soul destroying. There is nothing like being bullied to break a person down. I mean, I hated the fact that I was clever. I hated the fact that I was good at things. And I went inwards. I thought, well, if all these people are saying all these bad things about me, then it has to be true. Because why would they say it otherwise? And I've only just started to heal from that, and I've only just started to say, okay, maybe what they said wasn't true. Maybe it was just people saying it. But, I mean, 7 years, people say to me, why can't you just get over it? And I turn around to them and say, I went through 7 years of it. 7 years, most days of the year, of people saying, you're ugly, you're too skinny, you're a nerd, you're frigid, things like that. And when you hear that on a day-to-day basis, eventually it sinks in and becomes the truth for you, almost like a gospel. You believe it so much that when someone says, well, actually, you're not like that, you're a lovely person, you either think they're lying or you think they're just saying it out of pity. And for a long time, I thought any person that I went out with, any boyfriend that I had, was literally just with me out of pity. I mean, even up until about 6 or 7 months ago, I thought my current partner was with me out of pity. Because he thought, I don't know, I thought people were with me because I couldn't cope on my own. I thought people were with me out of pity. I thought they were people who had nothing left to lose. You literally believe that you are the lowest of the low and you cannot ever achieve anything, and you feel like anything you do achieve will never be good enough. And you just give up on yourself, and you just get through every day and get through this year, get through next year. But there's always this little bit of you inside that's just hoping, praying that things get better. But then on the flip side, when they do get better, you don't trust that things will stay that way. You think, oh, things are good now, but in a few months it will be back to square one and everything will be horrible again. But, yeah, I mean, bullying is just the worst thing ever. And I really, really sincerely hope any children I have never go through it. I mean, it wasn't the children's... Well, I say it wasn't the children's fault. It was their fault for choosing to act on what they thought. But what they thought was bred out of ignorance and not understanding and not trying to understand. So, in a way, I blame the bullies, but in a way, I don't. I blame them for doing what they did. But what they did was bred out of the fact that I was different and they didn't know why. And I didn't know why. I just knew that I was different. And, I mean, it wasn't until I was 20 and I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is a social and communication disorder, that piece finally went into place and I could look back and go, so that's why that happened. Because they certainly didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, I don't really blame anybody for what happened, but I wish it hadn't. It's about 2 years in, it was 2005, so I would have been about 14, 15. And I'd actually been taken to see... the bullying had got so bad that I had taken some very inappropriate actions to get it sorted, and the school had referred me for anger management. And it was then that I was told I might possibly have an autism spectrum disorder and possible attachment disorder, which would have been caused by the adoption. And it was then that they had to explain to me what attachment disorder was. And I then asked my mum about it because they said it could be from me being taken away at a young age. And of course, I couldn't remember when I was last told because I was only 11. And I asked my mum about it and she said, she basically told me that I was adopted. So, It was pretty hard to hear, and it was, I mean, I know my parents told me when I was younger, but at the time, it was really hard to hear it come from a professional first, rather than my parents. But I am assured that they did tell me. It was just probably when I was about that big and can't remember. Despite what they've done, they brought me into this world. You know, my father, you know, I have half of his DNA and half of my mother's DNA. And for me, I can't just kick them out of my life because they don't care, because they will still be there. They will still be part of my past and part of my life. And for me, they created me. You know, my adoptive parents raised me and did a fantastic job of it. But without them, I wouldn't be here. You know, without my biological parents, I would not be sitting here. So I think it's because I have respect that they created me. You know, I mean, I don't like what they've done and I don't like their behaviour, but they made me. I did well at GCSE. I got 5 A's, a B and 5 C's, which was pretty good for a grammar school. I was mostly interested in music, still am, and creative writing, so poetry, stories, mostly because it provided an escape. You know, if I was reading and writing about a fairy in a magic castle somewhere, I didn't have to deal with what was happening. I could shut myself off from it, and for that half hour or an hour or however long, everything was all right. Everything was right with the world. And then it was sort of like a de-stressing. I'd read for hours about anything, and then I'd come back and I'd be more able to deal with what was going on. About my degree, well, it's a music degree, 3 years, final year. There's practical and theoretical elements. You can, for the first year, you have to do a mixture of practical and theoretical, and then in your second year and third year, you have to do several modules in the degree, but you have an option of doing a module outside the degree. So last year I did British Sign Language to level 1, and this year I'm doing a module on witchcraft, magic and belief in early modern Europe, which is very long to say. And it's really good, actually. It teaches you about different styles. You have the option to learn about different styles, and if you do performance, then you're able to do a recital. You can do various musical things. We have something called Music at One, which is on a Friday at a local venue, and you go along, you pay a small fee, and you hear music students or other people play. And it's interesting for me. I mean, I've always been drawn more towards the theoretical side of music. I'm not a natural born performer, and I like looking at how music can affect people, you know, how it can help people, mostly because it helped me at a really difficult time. I mean, I'm doing my final year dissertation and it's on music therapy and autism, and seeing whether a reclassification of what I have would be reflected in music therapy practice, and if so, why it should be or why it shouldn't be. And it's so interesting looking at how music affects people, how it helps people, how it brings people together. I mean, you know, when you hear nasheeds, or if you go to a Christian church, when you hear hymns, you know, music brings people together. And I like seeing how it does that. I mean, that's the most interesting part of my degree, doing my dissertation. My mother's Catholic and my father's Church of England. They don't go to church. They pray, I suppose, in their own way. I've never really asked them about it. My experiences of religion in the family come from the fact that I was raised a Christian until I was 12, and I was christened and baptised and confirmed. Went through all that rigmarole. And then I stopped believing in Christianity after a family bereavement, and then I sort of drifted. I went through phases of picking bits from different religions and making them into my own version of religion, I suppose. And then I flirted with paganism for a couple of years and quite liked it. I mean, I still like elements of it. I like learning about herbs. You know, I mean, I find that really useful, knowing what you can use different herbs for and so forth. And then obviously